The problem, it's a wonderful problem, is that so many churches have thousands and even tens of thousands of people online, some of which, like my last call, the pastor said, well, we launched the church during the pandemic, and, we didn't even mean to stay digital, and look what God did for us. Others, it's very intentional or have a good reputation or whatever. But for whatever reason, these churches are saying, we got all these people out here, some of whom give money. And we need to figure out, how do we move them from spectator to participant, from observer to, having relationships? How do we make disciples out of that? And so I guess my first question is, most churches are kind of starting with, well, these are our aspirations and this is where we're kind of stuck. Do you have a dream for what you'd like to see happening digitally?
Yeah, I would say that our whole mission is to lead people to know Jesus and passionately follow him. And whenever I think about what we're doing, whether it's online, print, whatever it might be, it's who is our audience? Who are those people that we're trying to reach? And we have a very specific target audience that we're looking at, because we believe that if we focus our efforts on communication and reaching these people, we'll reach everybody. But if we try and speak to everybody, we kind of get lost. Nobody really listens. So with that said, I'd like to start with, okay, if we know what our mission is and we know who we're trying to reach, what are the activities that are going to help us best do that? And when it comes to online, I think just like a lot of churches in 2020, we had to pivot and create an online space for people to continue to go to church, especially here in California, where we weren't allowed to meet. And out of that came the question of, well, how do we lead people online in a way that helps them stay connected? So there's a few thoughts that kind of come to my mind. One is that spiritual formation doesn't happen in isolation. So we have to provide avenues of community for the online audience. That has to happen in order for them to grow and thrive. Two, there has to be ways that they can serve or participate in what the church is doing, right? We want to get them from just consumers to contributors, like you were saying. And so how do we do that in a way that helps them feel like they're part of the community, not just, out in the ether? And then three, there has to be a way that they can easily get all of the content that we're producing and talk about it with one another. So I think with those thoughts kind of coming together, the real question is, what is your strategy? What is your digital strategy? Are you just putting content out there for anybody to consume and access? And that's great and wonderful. Or are you truly trying to create an online community, an online campus? And where we landed is, yes, we do want to create an online campus and create community for people and give them ways to be engaged and connected. And some of the places where we lack, or some of the tools that we lack right now, are an app that really supports online content digestion and connection with other people and with Echo. And then there are some challenges that we face with how we're currently doing church online that our online pastor has kind of spoken about, and that we would love to address at some point.
That's a very helpful setting of the frame. And you mentioned online pastor. What is your title?
I'm director of digital.
Which, 5 years ago, who would have heard of a title like that?
Right? Yeah.
And I take it you're over the online pastor, and what other role?
He's over me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's over me. And so I lead the marketing and church management team. So IT. And he is primarily the online campus pastor. He runs the online experience when we're doing services. So he's very involved, and he has a team that helps them do that weekly.
Okay. So it sounds like, and this is a fork in the road, some
Yeah.
churches are app dependent. Like earlier this morning, I talked with Kyle Ransom at Crossroads, Cincinnati,
Yeah.
and they're trying to do all their discipleship through an app.
Hmm.
There are other churches like Echo saying, well, no, we don't have an app yet, but we're not doing it by an app. How do you then move people, help them make steps? Like if you have a CHOP program, they have to sign in or whatever. If they're watching YouTube, you have no idea
Yep.
where they are. So
And
how do
that's
you
the rub.
help them make that first step? What's working best?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head that YouTube has so many great benefits. It's got an amazing search engine, so people can find your your page and can engage with your content. It gives you the live services, but some of the engagement tools in YouTube are not as good as a CHOP platform. And if you were to talk to the volunteers, and this is all stuff that Tim has shared with me, Pastor Tim, who's the online pastor, that if you talk to the team who engages with our online community, they're like, yeah, we really love all of the features that we have in the CHOP platform, but gosh, can we reach a lot more people through YouTube? And so you have these really two amazing tools that have different functions, and we chose to proceed with going with YouTube to have a farther reach so that people can get engaged and kind of not forego any of those extra community elements that are really great in the CHOP platform, but to do our best with what is offered in YouTube. Now, in terms of discipleship, all people that we want to disciple, we do have the strategy of our website is for guests who we're trying to reach, and so they can see whether Echo is a place for them. So it's very visitor oriented. That's not to say that our attendees won't use the website, they won't find content on the site. They absolutely will. But that's our primary focus, is the guest. The app which we're developing right now and should be launched this year is for discipleship, for our attendees, for them to grow spiritually and stay connected with Echo and with one another, whether it's in groups or through prayer or any of the other features that the app will have. So how that connects with the online community, I think that weekly YouTube is there for your online services, for your kind of online church. And then Monday through Saturday, you also have this app that can help with keeping you connected, regardless of whether you're online or in person.
So since you're marketing and IT, do you do ads on YouTube? How do you find people, or how do you help people find you? And by the way, I spent a while on your website this morning. It is just outstanding for newcomers and checking out the church and giving an image and clarity and friendly to, doesn't have any code that someone far from long time away from church would have trouble with.
Right. We want to make it as easy as possible for people who haven't engaged in church to understand what it's going to be like. So thank you. I appreciate that. It's going to be even better when the new site comes out.
Question is, how do you get word out about YouTube? Do you pay for ads? I mean, with Facebook, you can do lookalike, very specific ads.
Yeah, we haven't
What do
done.
you do?
We haven't done any specific ads. I think we're just relying solely on what YouTube serves up for people and how people search for it. There is a plethora of what we can start exploring in terms of how we do more YouTube advertising for our church online experience. So yeah, we don't necessarily do that right now.
Okay. One of the big challenges in the survey, there were high aspirations of, we really, at least for people local that are connected with us, we'd really like to figure out how do we bridge from online to in church, in person. How is that working for Echo? Are you seeing, so in other words, in the survey we're speculating, does a certain amount of online presence translate into a certain amount of in-person visitors?
Yes, that does happen. I think, especially here in the Bay Area, maybe not just in the Bay Area, but the pattern that we're seeing is people might watch a recording of a message, or they might join the online church live services at least once, and maybe up to 5-6 times, to determine whether this is a place where they feel like they fit and they belong. And then once they do, then they will take a step into in-person, into the in-person community. That is absolutely a pipeline for how people come to become in-person attendees.
So I'm hearing you say that the new front door, if you will, is online. They check out the website, they watch one or more services, and then if they're local, they may take the next step of coming in person.
Yeah, they might, but there's also that part of the people who prefer an online community. There's just, and it may not necessarily be that they're not local. They just want to stay online. We actually have, I've talked to a few people who are like, yeah, no, I live in Fremont, right next to one of your campuses, but you know what? I am just going to stay online. And there might be a number of reasons for that, but yes, I would say that it is a front door. And it's a low barrier way that people who are exploring faith can do so with some psychological safety, to see without a lot of investment. If you can recall, maybe you've been a long time follower, but I remember early in my walk of faith that I would go into church and I would just be petrified that somebody was going to talk to me. And as soon as church was over, I would run out. It's a very scary experience for some people to walk into a place and experience it for the first time. And digital and the online campus allows people to do that safely.
So almost you're saying, if I'm hearing you, the less churched our nation is in terms of the comfort levels of, oh yeah, I've been in churches before, the more of a strange community it is, and the more feelings like what you had of, I hope nobody talks to me or singles me out or whatever. And therefore, the online is only going to, as we become a less church nation, less memory of a church, the online is going to become increasingly important for helping people make that bridge.
I think so. Like if you think about how people engage now through social media, there's one aspect of people, the way that people start and engaging with people, develop friendships, develop relationships online is a little backwards, right? And then coming out of the pandemic, we had a bunch of people who were very isolated and now have to be reintroduced into the wild, if you will, of how do we be people again? And so there's still a lot of people, I think in the Bay Area and maybe elsewhere, but specifically here, that feel a lot of anxiety around that. How do I do that? How do I make friends again? How do I build community? How do I not seem weird? How do I know that I'm going to belong? And especially if there's so many people working from home and behind screens, that's safe, right? And so online campuses provide people a way of exploring faith safely. But I also know that loneliness is a huge, huge pandemic in this region, but across the US. People are lonely. because they were in isolation and because they're like, I don't know how to do this anymore. It feels odd. And so that might be, if we can help people understand that church is a safe place, you're going to belong here. You're going to find your people. You're going to be able to engage. That they can start with the online and then go safely into the in-person to find their people.
Jenny, these are really good thoughts. For about the last 6 minutes, we've talked kind of about the same thing. Could I ask you to restate, and you started with the pattern we're seeing is that people watch and come, and then a minute or so later you talked about it's a low barrier way, and then just a second ago you talked about the anxiety and loneliness. Could you say all those in about 1 minute together, that start with like the pattern we're seeing is this, and here's why it's working as we see it?
Okay. So we know that there's a pandemic of loneliness within the country, and people coming out of COVID have a lot of anxiety about meeting people, forming friendships, forming relationships. And I believe that one of the reasons that we're seeing online campuses, online church be as successful as it is it's a safe, low barrier entry for people who are exploring faith to see what a church might be like, to see if that's where they're going to find their people, experience what what it would be like in person, in the safety of their home. And then when they're ready and they're like, okay, yes, this seems like a place they want to be, they will go in person. That is why I think that this is a pathway for people to in-person church, and it's absolutely necessary.
Bingo. You did that in 50 seconds.
Woo!
And I will definitely use that clip
Okay.
as part of the webinar. Your other stuff I can use as quotes, but that's great. Okay, so we've talked about kind of the technical side. We've talked about, is it a feeder? We've talked about your staffing. We've talked about you growing it without an app, the YouTube and the website primarily. Can you talk about, is there anything else that I should ask about understanding kind of, here's where Echo is, and everybody's somewhere on the journey. Mm-hmm. But here's something really important that we've learned about the transitioning people from spectator to participant, that when people talk to us about our model and approach and experience, I always try to share. Meaning, what have I not asked you?
I think language is really important. How you frame the language. One of the things that we like to do in all of the things that we produce to encourage people to move from one place to another, from inaction to action, is to have a community type language. Instead of saying you should give, or you should serve, or you should be doing this, it's, hey, we get this opportunity to serve and we would love for you to join us. So come, blah, 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 whatever that might be. We as followers of Jesus know that he calls us to trust and obedience in God by giving. So we're going to take the moment to do that right now. It feels more, it doesn't feel more like, it feels more welcoming and less of a, like, you're not doing the right thing. So language is a really important part of getting people from one point to another, and how we do it in a way that makes them feel comfortable.
And for the giving in particular, I think I'm hearing you saying this, that you don't differentiate between, online pitches, if you will, and in person. It's one pitch of here's where we're going, and giving is part of that journey.
I would want you to confirm with Tim on that one, but my assumption is yes. I mean, we're one church, multiple locations, so the way that we talk about giving is we have it's something that we do to demonstrate trust and obedience. There's an impact to it, and we tell stories around that impact, whether it's through Echo Compassion, local or global or church planting, and how they can contribute to that impact by participating in this way, by giving.
Do you have one last question? Do you have any sense of this is what is working really well, or this is what we do best in terms of how we get people connected? You and I spoke earlier about the YouTube, kind of the bridge being the website, but is there anything else you do to say, like an intentional strategy of, we're doing small groups, anyone is welcome to attend, they're going to start online, and the last week is going to be an in-person party, as your strategy for taking all these online people and helping them take that first step?
That also might be a Tim question, but I would say some of the things that we do are when we have a huge outreach event, like this weekend we're doing Block Party, and it's a shorter message where we get together and we have some community. There's no online experience of that. So in our communications to our online campus or the people who attend online, we'll say, hey, you know what? This is going to be a really awesome experience. It's best in person. Come join us. We'd love to see you face to face. So there are a number of times during the year where we will encourage them to come in person because the experience will be better in person.
I saw your block party on your website, and it was very inviting. Let's get to know each other. Let's hang out together. I didn't realize it was one Sunday only. I thought, oh, they do this every Sunday all summer, and
No.
then I thought, oh, it's California. It's like summer all year long.
Yeah.
So, all right, that's a great idea. So.